fanboy, can you finally admit that his word is not gospel? Can you finally admit that it's okay to like Tarantino films and consider him to be a great director, writer, whatever, but also acknowledge that he has some really bad opinions? This is the same guy who back in like 2010 said that years from now, which he was, okay, so what did Paul Dano do to Quentin Tarantino? The question on everybody's minds. Okay. Quentin Tarantino went on the Bret Easton Ellis podcast, and he was asked about his 20 favorite films. Coming in at number 5, he named There Will Be Blood. Paul Thomas Anderson film, one of Daniel Day-Lewis's Oscar wins, also one of his greatest performances of all time. Okay. So here's where the comes in. Tarantino is talking about the film, and he goes, There Will Be Blood would stand a good chance at being number 1 or 2. Well, actually, Tarantino would say it more like, There Will Be Blood would stand a good chance at being number 1 or 2 if it didn't have a giant, big flaw in it. And the flaw is Paul Dano. It's fucking Paul Dano. Tarantino shared as he compared Dano's performance to Daniel Day-Lewis. Obviously, it's supposed to be a two-hander, but it's also drastically obvious that it's not a two-hander. Dano is weak sauce, man. He is the weak sister. This is crazy. This is wild. Or Paul Dano. Sorry, I was saying it as Quentin Tarantino, and Quentin Tarantino would pronounce it wrong. Weak sauce. It's weak sauce. Tarantino is a man of solutions and gave his pitch for who should have played the Sunday Brothers, even if his pick was only 15 at the time of release. This is so fucking crazy to me. He names Austin Butler. Austin Butler would have been wonderful in that role, Tarantino pitched before going back to Dano. He's just such a weak, uninteresting guy. The weakest fucking guy. The weakest fucking actor in SAG. Okay, so if you're a Tarantino talking in 2010, nobody would remember Cate Blanchett films. This guy is a dick, and he has some really piss poor opinions. And yet Tarantino fanboys, I know you say no one's word is gospel, everyone has L takes. Tarantino fanboys still treat Tarantino as though he is like, it's like his lips to God's ear. They will refuse to acknowledge that a lot of times he has fuck ass takes. Just some of the worst takes that you can have. You know? And they will try and they will try and be like, yeah, oh, but Tarantino he's one of the greats. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't matter, okay? Because you can still have horrendous takes like Quentin Tarantino does and be a great director. Daniel Day-Lewis previously praised Paul Dano, who stepped in for another actor for the role weeks after filming started, at the time calling him one of the promising young actors in the business. Anybody who has seen Paul Dano in any of his films, I think you would agree that the statement, the weakest fucking actor in SAG, is asinine. It's just completely asinine for Quentin Tarantino to be going off on a rant about, checks notes, Paul Dano. Also, Paul Dano is excellent in There Will Be Blood. Paul Dano is excellent, especially considering that he is going up against Daniel Day-Lewis. Do you know how hard it is to go up against Daniel Day-Lewis And I'm sorry, no, I don't think Austin Butler would have been the ideal pick for that role. I don't think Austin Butler makes any fucking sense in that. And it kind of feels like Quentin Tarantino just has a crush on Austin Butler. That's crazy. And I'm not just saying because Austin Butler was 15 at the time. Austin Butler in that role over Paul Dano, if like Austin Butler is the age he is now and Paul Dano is the age he was when they did There Will Be Blood, no. 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 This was Austin Butler at like age 15. Does he just not find Paul Dano hot and he wants to fuck Austin Butler? Did Paul Dano fuck his mom? What's the game here? These are the questions that need to be asked and answered, because it's very confusing. Paul Dano also plays 2 characters in There Will Be Blood. He's incredible. He is, I think he is still one of the most underrated actors in his generation. I think Paul Dano he's got a special quality to him as an actor. And that's why it's absurd for Quentin Tarantino to be popping off in this way about, of all people, Paul Dano. You know, if I had seen this rant and didn't know it was about Paul Dano, I would have been like, okay, this would make sense if, say, insert Jared Leto's name, right? If he's going on and on about actors, if it was like Taylor Lautner, I'm sorry, Taylor Lautner catching strays. I don't know. Steven Seagal, Mark Wahlberg. I don't know. Honestly, a lot of other actors that are not Paul Dano. There's a lot of people I could use as an example that I still think are good actors that I would still insert their name instead of Paul Dano. Can you imagine Jared Leto playing Paul Dano's character? No, he simply could not. Simply could not. Anyway, so these statements hit the timeline today, and a lot of people were like, what the hell did Paul Dano do to Quentin Tarantino? Because this feels personal. This is not just Quentin Tarantino being like, There Will Be Blood, number 5, Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously GOAT. Paul Dano doesn't fully measure up to him, but still does a good enough job, still love the film. No, he is going in on a way that, I gotta be for real, I don't know if there's a single human being who feels this way about Paul Dano, except for Quentin Tarantino. I think it's quite possible that Quentin Tarantino may be the only person in the world who has this specifically nasty of an opinion on Paul Dano. It's crazy. Calling Paul Dano the weakest fucking actor in SAG. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino, the biggest and possibly only Paul Dano hater. Quentin Tarantino, this is giving, if there's 10,000 Paul Dano haters, I'm one of them. If there's 1,000 Paul Dano haters, I'm one of them. If there's one Paul Dano hater, it's me. If there's no Paul Dano haters, it's because I'm dead. So I seriously think there's got to be, I think well, some people were like, oh, is it because Paul Dano is pro-Palestine? No, I don't think it's that. I think there has to be something, there's got to be some behind the scenes something that, like, Quentin is petty. Quentin Tarantino is a petty ass bitch. And because he's a petty ass bitch, and because he's an attention whore, and because he's got legions of fanboys, he will frequently state very strong opinions like this that are insane. Can you compare Dano's skills to a more recognizable actor? Okay. So I don't think I think they're different, but there's something about, there is something about, do you know Jesse Plemons? Do you know the actor Jesse Plemons? So I don't think they're the same, but there's always been something about Paul Dano and the roles that he plays, and then Jesse Plemons and the roles he plays that I've always seen a parallel to. They kind of both play guys who can be unassuming, but then there's like something very scary and dangerous underneath the surface. Like, you know, unassuming, but a like psychopathic glint in their eye. A white boy who you might not look at twice, but could end up, but will earn your attention for being absurdly deranged. You know, I agree. Jesse Plemons is the best part of Civil War. Yeah. He's also incredible in Breaking Bad, you know? So school shooter archetype, they just kind of have this like slow way of talking, something that doesn't feel right, you know? And they're great character actors. Yeah, they're both great character actors. I would say even more Paul Dano. Paul Dano as a character actor. Let me show you an example of nice terrorist organization. They don't represent the Palestinian people when they value murdering Israelis more than protecting their own. You either stand with Israel. This is what he had written. This is what he had written October 7th. You either stand with Israel or you stand with terrorism. It shouldn't be a difficult choice. While you justify the murders and torture of our loved ones, we will hope and pray for safety, justice, liberation, and self-determination in Palestine. So honestly, what he wrote like on October 7th was essentially what he still continued to say. And that's, I'm going to keep it a buck. After over 2 years of genocide, with a lot of people having a much deeper awareness and understanding of how long Palestinians have been treated as not even like second-class citizens, as inhumane, as not human beings, being subjected to a cruel, tyrannical rule for decades, not having true liberation. Like, there is still this attitude. There is still this attitude from people who are ultimately Zionists, who ultimately support the state of Israel, but over the last couple years realized that it needed to be framed in a way that they didn't seem like they were genocidal monsters, and would mention how, yes, there are innocent Palestinians and my heart breaks for them, and all I want is for there to be peace in the region. But these are the type of people who either don't they're just not knowledgeable enough, or they still will vehemently disagree and talk about, they'll still use the, oh, we need a 2-state solution. Oh, Hamas is the problem here. Oh, well, Israelis are targeted because of their Jewish faith. There is still the denial of the system of apartheid that has been in place for decades. There is still, there is still not a total condemnation of Israel, essentially. Meanwhile, Brett Gelman is there as deranged as a Zionist as Michael Rappaport, and no one seems to notice. Yeah, and right now, it's concerning because Israel's genocide has not stopped, but really what happened is, because of the ceasefire, it meant that there has now been less media attention. People have stopped paying the attention that they were before. The belief that, oh, everything is fine, it's all over. Meanwhile, Israel has violated the ceasefire 500 times. That's not an exaggeration. They have continued to kill Palestinians every single day, continued to starve them. And yet, I know I'm word vomiting here, but it's frustrating to me. Not just because it's still ongoing and because there's less media attention on it, but because I feel like what we're already seeing is people doing reputational fixing, and there kind of being a lack of remembering around those who, for the past couple years, have shown that they are not on the side of Palestinians. They are not on the side of humanity. And anyway, I feel as more time is going on past the ceasefire that I put in quotations, there's going to be this, there's just going to be continued whitewashing. There's just going to be like, everybody has amnesia and forgets about celebrities and journalists and politicians and people with influence and people in positions of power who deserve every single day of their lives to be reminded of the things that they said and the cruelty that they advocated for, Anyway. What are we going to do? Have you seen that video of Israeli teens in a classroom losing their shit when Smotrich visited their school like he's a celebrity? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at this Hollywood Union win. Let's look at something good in Hollywood. I've noticed that on my timeline, there's been less talk about Gaza. Yeah, I mean, it's because one of the reasons for the ceasefire, one of the reasons that certainly Netanyahu agreed to the ceasefire, and Trump and others who were in a political position of power to do something about this. They agreed to this because it's theater, right? It's political theater. The ceasefire gives the international community an excuse to stop focusing on what Israel is doing in Gaza. And people who aren't people who aren't taking the care to make sure that they're still well informed and know what's going on. If you're just looking at your feed, if that's how you mainly consume your news, you're seeing less and less of the carnage in Palestine, which is by design. You're seeing less and less media coverage on the continued genocide in Palestine, because that is by design. And that is because also the ceasefire being declared meant that the media, the international community turned their, turned away. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the war has not ended. Those are his words. Obviously, it's not a war, but he has said the war has not ended because he never meant for it to end. I think everyone stops paying attention when something new happens. Yeah, I mean, people were tired of people were fed up with the genocide. They wanted it to end. They were sickened by constantly seeing horrific images on their timelines. And so it's what feeds into this political theater as well, where they wanted it to be done. And so when a ceasefire was declared, people were like, yay, great. And then felt that they could move on without feeling guilty about it. And when less news, when less news covering the genocide is on your timeline, like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And now tech companies are purging the graphic images, literally destroying the evidence. Yes. And now they have already been underway in erasing journalism by Palestinians, videos on YouTube, TikToks, evidence, historical evidence. They have been deleting it. They've been erasing it. Not only because of the lack of coverage by mainstream media, but also the continued targeting of Palestinian journalists. Yes, it's all by design. And so anyway, it's just a reminder that unfortunately, Palestinians are still greatly suffering. And also, we are not going to have amnesia in regards to public figures who have been on the wrong side of history. And just because now less people are talking about the genocide and there's less attention on it, doesn't mean now that there's going to be this like misremembering or forgetting. Lil Squiddles, thank you. Emma Ann, thank you for the resub. Hey Mia, thank you for the resub. Okay. Anywho, good news in Hollywood. The Pitt production assistants ratify first union contract. The production assistants on The Pitt have officially secured their first union contract. After opting to join LIUNA Local 724, part of the Hollywood Laborers Union in September, the group revealed Tuesday that it had ratified its first agreement with Parallax TV Productions. The contract covers all production assistants for the remainder of the current season as well as season 3. This is believed to be the first major television production where production assistants and assistants have unionized. As part of the agreement, PAs will now qualify for motion picture industry health and pension benefits for the first time. Yay, unionizing. The effort was led by Production Assistants United, a grassroots organization that took shape in 2023 during the strikes. Per the org, the agreement also includes employer-paid training as well as the creation of a pathway committee composed of both company and union representatives to address challenges associated with career advancement in television. This is a historic victory, and it marks a significant milestone for production assistants and the film industry nationwide. This achievement is a testament to our collective efforts, and we are confident that this will pave the way for even greater progress. Oscar Flores, a PA on the pit, said in a statement, "We express our gratitude to Parallax TV Productions, Zayuna, and our production for their attentiveness and proactive measures. While the path ahead may be challenging, this agreement represents a crucial step toward achieving parity." Added Mike McWilliam, another PA on the series, "I'm deeply grateful to the company for taking the time to acknowledge the vital role that PAs play on film sets. The absence of healthcare benefits has been difficult, especially for those of us with families. This new agreement establishes a year-round union-level benefit system. It's a major achievement that will support PAs and their families across the country. I'm excited to see which studio steps up next." Let me just tell you, if you don't know like what a PA is in Hollywood, PAs are the unsung heroes. PAs do everything for very little money and hardly any thanks. Hollywood productions would not be able to function, would not happen without PAs. So a lot of people who move to Hollywood to like be producers or directors or writers or actors, a lot of people start off in the area of production assistants. Not because it's like easy to get those jobs, but it's a way to start working on a film set, to gain experience, to gain connections, but they are brutal. It is a brutal job. And people put up with the bullshit, with the little pay, with the no benefits, with the lack of gratitude, with the no recognition for how important PAs are on production sets. They put up with it because it's a way to get their foot in the door. It's a way to gain experience. It's a way to start working in the industry. So anyway, this is huge because, as I just explained, PAs are unsung heroes who are not paid enough, who do not have the benefits that they deserve, who are incredibly crucial to the film industry machine. And because we know what happens when successful unions, when a successful unionizing occurs, is it can create a domino effect. And hopefully the success with PAs unionizing on the set of The Pit, which we love The Pit here. We're big pitters in this community. This will lead to PAs on other film sets being inspired by this, learning from this, using this also in their bargaining. We love The Pit. Abbott Films on the lot next to The Pit. It makes sense they're already working on unionizing too. Mm-hmm. This kind of stuff, these kinds of wins are really important for a continuation of workers collectively unionizing. This is just one of many movements across television productions to unionize PAs and assistants. There are 3 union elections for Warner Brothers shows in the next week, including for Abbott Elementary, which we just mentioned. Production assistants on Universal's 4 seasons will also be voting this month via mail-in ballot, as their season 2 set is in Italy. The latter already has the support of the showrunners, with Tina Fey, Lang Fisher, and Tracy Wigfield writing in a statement, We love our PAs. They keep our show running and deserve benefits and pay commensurate with how hard they work. We are proud to support them in their initiative to unionize, said Four Seasons showrunners Tina Fey, Lang Fisher, and Tracy Wigfield in a joint statement. So, love to see it. Congratulations to these production assistants. And I hope that this is part of big changes. This is the beginning of big changes in Hollywood, away from this long-held belief that because Hollywood is such a competitive industry, because so many people try to make it in the biz and so few succeed, that if you're lucky enough to get an assistant position, then that's exactly what it is. You're lucky enough to get an assistant position, and you better put up with the horrible hours, with the lack of pay, with the lack of respect, being mistreated, because do you know how many people would be lining up to have that job? This is an attitude that has persisted for so long. There's the attitude too of, well, I had to pay my dues, so no, and I don't mean union dues. I had to pay my dues, so now you have to as well. Like when I worked at Sony Pictures, there were definitely executives who had that attitude of, do you know how much worse it was when I was your age, when I was coming up in the industry? You're lucky you're getting paid. I'm like, okay, no, I'm getting paid $15 an hour, and I'm doing a lot of work. I'm not just sitting here answering phones. I'm like sourcing projects. I am giving you executives notes that then you go and use when you have meetings with your bosses. So I play a very crucial role here. Also, answering phones is important too. But anyway, I do hope that attitudes are changing, and not just attitudes are changing, but people's labor situation is changing, where we have more, we have more unionizing, we have more worker protections, we have higher pay, we have healthcare. If I'm David Zasloff, can I cancel the pit and then greenlight the oddly similar spinoff in the pit and undo those contracts? Well, hopefully he's a little busy right now with the sale of Warner Brothers and Discovery, and trying to ensure that he makes out on top here. I'm out of the loop. Why is this show by show? Are they building up to one big union for PAs like other industry unions? So it's because production assistants don't have an established union like actors do, with SAG-AFTRA. This is a grassroots org called Production Assistants United. So yes, ultimately, I think the idea would be that they have a union for the for all production assistants. But right now it's essentially they go set by set, because it has to be the production assistants on that set who are voting to unionize, just like with Starbucks, right? So there are, I don't know if my numbers are right on this, there's like 500 out of 10,000 Starbucks that have unionized, I think, in the United States. And it's something that goes store by store, where the workers will vote and decide to form a union. And then, of course, Starbucks will still do everything that they can to prevent that. But anyway, the reason that they do this is logistics, is it's as you strike against a major corporation like Starbucks. You know? You know who wouldn't have done that? Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo would not have been on the picket line with the Starbucks baristas. All right. Quentin Tarantino. Let's take a look at his crazy comments. Yeah, Cuomo would step over that picket line to go get his burnt coffee. I know I've said this a lot, but I have been boycotting Starbucks even before there were official calls to boycott it, because Starbucks coffee is terrible. So, first and foremost, you should not drink Starbucks. Forget about all the union busting, because it's ass. It's really bad. It is intentionally burnt. And I've never understood. Well, no, I do, because humans are, like their creature comforts, and we become convinced when something is a major chain that it's like the only thing that we can ever consume. Starbucks is so bad. It's so bad. And I have always been perplexed at people who, look, maybe if there's no other coffee, like, did all the other coffee shops die? Is it giving the energy of, is it giving the energy of when, what's his name was Sexiest Man Alive? Why can't I think of his name? On The Voice. Blake Shelton, thank you. Yeah, when Blake Shelton was Sexiest Man Alive. And it was like, did everybody else die? When people who choose Starbucks, even though they have other coffee options. Yeah, I don't get it. It's No, I know it's purposely burnt. I know. And I think it tastes like shit. I think it tastes like ass. Rosarium, thank you for the prime. Emma Ann, thank you. Hey Mia, Little Squiddles. Sorry, I can't remember if I already. Sometimes I forget if I have said thank you for resubbing. So I might as well say it again. Also, this is 1 year ago, which is put Paul Dano on the map. This is only 1 year. This is early in his career still. And as we mentioned, he was initially supposed to play a smaller role on the film, but then Kel O'Neill dropped out or something. I don't. Well, I guess it's not really spoilers, but he was supposed to play the twin, and then he just ended up playing. Yeah. Ooh, Paul Dano. I will avenge you. I will avenge you. Yeah, weakest fucking actor in SAG. Dude, I don't even need to hear him saying this on the podcast to hear, like, I can hear him saying this. I can hear him saying this. We're really gonna pretend if fanboys of Quentin Tarantino, we're really going to pretend like Tarantino doesn't have some of the worst fucking opinions. And I say this, and there's a difference between fans of Quentin Tarantino and then fanboys, okay? You know who I'm talking about. He sucks. He really does. All right, last scene I'll show you because I think this is an excellent film too.
Yo, come with me.
Here you go.
No, they weren't playing.
Plus I have to do something on I have to do something for my sponsor that I'm fixing right now. This is from the film Prisoners. God, I would love to watch this for a film class if it's ever available. I think actually Will might have watched this though. This is the film Prisoners from 2013. This is Denis Villeneuve, starring Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. And Hugh Jackman plays a father whose daughter has gone missing, and he decides to get shit done himself. And anyway, this is Paul Dano is just, he's harrowing in this performance. Is this a spoiler? I'm trying to remember. No.
Hey. What kind of guy, right? Maybe this guy.
Also, no, I didn't confuse Jake Gyllenhaal with Hugh Jackman. They're both in the film. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a cop. Hugh Jackman plays the father who is taking matters into his own hands. He just wasn't in that scene because it's an interrogation scene between Jake Gyllenhaal and Paul Dano's characters. I would never confuse Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. In Little Miss Sunshine, he's not creepy. Oh, I feel like we should watch this too. Little Miss Sunshine. Because this is really this is the world that I'm at. Entirety of Paul Dano's work, but I think the point has been proven that Quentin Tarantino is fucking stupid. And that's what I gotta say on that. What a douchebag. Abigail was an amazing young actress. Does she still work in film? Yeah, she does. She was in, I'm trying to see if there was anything of note. She's definitely still acting. I see some films from the 2020s that she was in. I don't think she's been in anything too noteworthy. But yeah, she's still performing. I think she was one of the best child actors, I would say. It was like her, Dakota Fanning, Haley Joel Osment. Who else would I? Who else would I put in? Jacob Tremblay. Does Haley Seinfeld count? No. No. I'm trying to think of other people, though, who are in her age range. No, I don't mean like greatest child actors of all time. I'm trying to think of other child actors in like the late 90s, early 2000s, because I think Haley Joel is a little bit older than Fanning. Macaulay Culkin is, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm gonna say this as somebody who likes Macaulay Culkin and always fondly looks back on Home Alone. I don't think Macaulay Culkin, I would say he was one of the most beloved child actors, and Kevin McAllister is a character that will live on in history. But I wouldn't put him up next to like a Haley Joel Osment, because I don't think Macaulay Culkin had the same range. You know? And I say that as somebody who loves the performances of young Macaulay Culkin, and I mean, he did comedy. He did comedy, and maybe I don't know. I'm trying. How else do I explain this? When you watch Home Alone, and I've seen Home Alone 8 million times, Macaulay is great in the role, but there are moments that he's not good. Like, there are moments where you can see him acting, where you can see like the limitations of him as a young actor, versus a Haley Joel Osment, who his role as Cole in Sixth Sense is some of the best child acting that I think I've ever seen. Anyway, maybe that's a hot take. Maybe that's a hot take on Macaulay Culkin, but I wouldn't say he's one of the greatest child actors as far as him being like a real versatile actor, you know, the type.